My parents always saw me as their personal bank account. When I discovered they'd left everything to my brother, I decided I was done being their financial crutch. My name is Ralph, and any doubts I had about my role in the family vanished the day I stumbled across their will. It wasn't some grand announcement where they sat me down to break the news. No, I found out by pure chance, a stroke of dumb luck. It happened a few months ago at their house, the same house I'd been helping them keep afloat for the past 5 years. I covered the mortgage, handled grocery runs, and even took care of small home repairs. I was the one holding everything together while my brother Eric contributed absolutely nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean zero. I mean, no job, no responsibilities, just lounging around, expecting life to hand him everything on a golden platter, which my parents were all too happy to provide. That day, I was helping my dad with some paperwork, because as usual, neither he nor Mom could be bothered to deal with it themselves. He asked me to scan a pile of documents, mostly legal and financial stuff, and I didn't think much of it until I spotted it, a folder labeled Estate Plan and Last Will. I'm not one to pry, but curiosity got the better of me. After all, I'd been the one ensuring they had a home. It wasn't unreasonable to wonder how their future plans looked, so I opened the folder. What I saw made my heart sink. Everything, literally everything, was going to Eric. The house, their savings, their assets. My name was barely mentioned, save for some vague line about how much they loved both their sons. Equal love, huh? That's why they ensured their favorite kid got it all, while the son who kept them afloat was left with nothing. I felt like an idiot. Here I was, sacrificing for them, making sure their bills were paid, and they never went without, while they planned a future where I got nothing. And Eric wasn't just lazy. He was entitled. He never lifted a finger to help, never chipped in a cent, yet he'd somehow convinced them he deserved it all. Maybe because he was the baby of the family. Maybe because they always coddled him. Maybe because he knew how to play them. Whatever the reason, they'd made their choice. I sat there, staring at the document, my hands shaking with anger and betrayal. How long had they planned this? Had they always seen me as their financial backup, giving nothing in return? Did they ever value what I'd done for them? I don't know how long I sat there, but eventually my dad noticed I wasn't scanning anything. "Ralph, what's taking so long?" he asked, walking back into the room. I didn't bother hiding the will. I held it up and looked him in the eye. "So this is how it is?" I said, my voice eerily calm. "Everything to Eric after all I've done for you?" His face paled for a moment. Then he sighed, like I was a kid throwing a fit. "Ralph, it's not what you think," he said. "Really?" I shot back. "Because it looks pretty clear to me. I've been paying your mortgage, buying groceries, fixing your house while Eric does nothing, and you still decided he's the only one who matters?" Dad shifted uncomfortably, but instead of explaining, he just said, "It's complicated." No apology, no real defense, just those two empty words and a hopeful look, as if he expected me to let it go and keep being their cash machine. I should have walked out then, but I wanted to hear it from both of them, so I called for my mom. When she saw the will in my hands, she looked guilty. But what she said next made my blood boil. "Ralph, honey," she said softly, like she was doing me a favor, "you don't need the inheritance. You've got a good job. You're self-sufficient. Eric, well, he struggles. We just want to make sure he's okay." That was the moment something inside me broke. They weren't clueless. They knew exactly what they were doing and thought it was perfectly fair. They'd spent years enabling Eric's laziness, and now they were rewarding it by giving him everything while I was just an afterthought. I took a deep breath, clenched my jaw, and set the will down. "Got it," I said, my voice steady. "Good to know where I stand." I turned and left, ignoring their protests as I shut the door behind me. They'd made their choice. Now it was time for me to make mine. I didn't go back to their house after that. I didn't call. I didn't check in. For the first time in years, I let them handle their own problems. If something needed fixing, they could figure it out. If they needed groceries, they could get to the store themselves. Most importantly, when the mortgage bill came, I wasn't paying it. The silence lasted about 2 weeks. At first, they probably thought I was just sulking and would come crawling back, like always. Maybe they expected me to cool off and apologize for daring to question them. But as the days passed without a word from me, and more importantly, without any money, they started to panic. Then, one afternoon, my phone buzzed. A text from Dad. "Property taxes are due." That was it. No, "Hey, how are you?" No, "Sorry about what happened." No, "We appreciate everything you've done." Just a cold, transactional demand, like I was still their personal ATM. I stared at the message, almost amused by how predictable they were. They really thought they could just ask for money like nothing had happened. I replied, I'm sure Eric can cover it since the house is his and all. It took 5 minutes for my mom to call. I let it go to voicemail. Then another text came. Ralph, please don't be like this. We need to talk. Oh, now they wanted to talk. Now that their bills were piling up and reality was hitting them? I waited an hour before responding, nothing to talk about. You made your choice. Now live with it. I thought that was the end of it. I'd made my stance clear. And I didn't feel bad about it. But then Eric decided to chime in. His text came late that night, and the moment I saw his name, I knew it'd be something infuriating. Sure enough, it was pure entitlement. Dude, why are you being so dramatic? It's not a big deal. Just help them out like you always do. I almost laughed. Not a big deal? He really thought I had no right to be upset. I typed back, no, I think you've got this since you're the favorite and all. His reply came fast. OMG, are you seriously mad about the will? Grow up, man. It's just money. Just money? Now that it was his to inherit, it didn't matter? The hypocrisy was unreal. I shot back, then you won't mind using some of that money to pay the mortgage, right? Silence. A few minutes later, Mom texted again, this time in full guilt trip mode. Ralph, we're your parents. Family takes care of each other. We did so much for you growing up, and now you're abandoning us. I had to take a deep breath to keep from throwing my phone. Abandoning them? I'd spent years making sure they never struggled while they enabled Eric's laziness. Now that they had to face the consequences, I was the bad guy? I wasn't falling for it this time. I replied, you made it clear I wasn't family when you left me out of the will. Now Eric can take care of you? I could imagine Mom gasping, always the master at playing the victim. Minutes later, Dad texted, and this one pushed me over the edge. We're not asking for much, just enough to cover the mortgage for a few months until we sort things out. Don't be selfish. Selfish? The word made my blood boil. I'd been bailing them out for years, sacrificing my own money, time, and energy. I'd done everything a good son would do, and they repaid me by cutting me out. Now I was selfish for standing up for myself? I clenched my jaw, took a deep breath, and texted back, no, I'm done. Then I blocked their numbers. But blocking them only made things worse. Less than a day later, I got a bank transfer request. I groaned as I checked it. It was from Mom, demanding $3,500, the exact amount for their overdue mortgage. No note, no explanation, just a shameless demand, like I was an ATM. They weren't even asking anymore. They just assumed I'd cave. I declined it without a second thought. 5 minutes later, Mom called. I let it ring, then a text. Ralph, I know you saw the request. Why did you decline it? I paused, then replied, because it's not my responsibility. Ask Eric. Another call, which I ignored. Then another text. We're going to lose the house if you don't help us. Oh, now it was a crisis? After years of treating me like a cash machine, they were finally facing consequences. I responded, maybe you should have thought of that before deciding I didn't matter. Seconds later, Dad texted, you're really going to let your parents become homeless? I laughed out loud. The manipulation was so blatant, it was almost funny. They weren't destitute. They just didn't want to dip into their savings because they were used to me covering everything. I ignored them for the rest of the day. That night, Eric texted, dude, just send the money already. You're making this a bigger deal than it is. I clenched my jaw. This entitled brat thought he could lecture me? I replied, you mean the money you're inheriting? Why don't you send it? His response was quick. You know I don't have that kind of cash right now. So now it was about affordability? He was fine with me draining my savings, but when it was his turn, he had nothing to offer. I typed back, guess you better figure it out then, bro. You're the one they chose. No reply. I went to bed feeling oddly at peace, like I'd finally broken free from years of manipulation. But things escalated the next day. I was at work when the front desk of my apartment called, Hey, Ralph, your parents are here. I nearly dropped my phone. What? The receptionist hesitated. They're saying it's an emergency and you're not answering their calls. Unbelievable. They showed up at my place because I stopped paying their bills. I took a deep breath and pinched the bridge of my nose. Don't let them up. I'm not expecting them. There was an awkward pause. They're being kind of insistent. I gritted my teeth. I don't care. Tell them to leave. I hung up and immediately got a text from Mom. We're downstairs. Open the door. No question, no explanation, just another demand. I didn't reply. Another text. Ralph, we're not leaving until you talk to us. I sighed sharply and stood up from my desk. They weren't backing down. Fine. I'd make sure they understood. I grabbed my keys and stormed downstairs, my blood boiling. I wasn't scared, I was furious. The nerve of them, showing up uninvited, demanding money like I was their personal bank. No call, no half-hearted apology, just a full-on ambush. They thought they could bully me into submission like I was a naive kid. I swung the door open, and there they were. Mom, Dad, and of course Eric, standing together like they were staging an intervention. Mom had her arms crossed, her signature disappointed mother face on full display. Dad stood stiffly, hands in his pockets, looking annoyed like he couldn't believe I was making him do this in person. And Eric, the little leech, looked bored, like this whole situation was just a minor inconvenience. When Mom saw me, she launched into full drama mode. "Ralph, finally, we need to talk." I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Number, you need to leave." She blinked like she couldn't process what I'd said. "Excuse me? You heard me?" I said, my voice calm but firm. "You don't get to show up at my apartment demanding money? That's insane." Dad scoffed. "Are you really going to let us lose the house over some petty grudge?" I let out a cold laugh. "Petty grudge? You mean the one where you decided I was good enough to pay your bills, but not good enough to be in your will?" Mom gasped, clutching her chest like I'd slapped her. "Ralph, that's not fair. We only did what we thought was best for the family." I tilted my head. "Best for the family? You mean best for Eric? Just admit it." Silence. A long, heavy silence. Eric, who'd been quiet until now, finally spoke up. "Look, man, I don't even want to be involved in this. I didn't ask for anything." I turned to him, letting loose. "No, you just take everything that's handed to you. You're 28, Eric. Get a damn job." His face turned red. "Dude, what the hell?" I stepped closer. "You heard me. You want to inherit the house? Act like a homeowner. You want to be the golden child? Start paying their bills. I'm done being your bank." Eric looked away, staring at the ground. Mom took a deep breath, doubling down on the guilt trip. "Ralph, he's your brother." I nodded. "Yeah, and I've supported him longer than you ever have." Dad's face darkened. "You're being selfish." I laughed, a real laugh. "That's rich," I said, gesturing between them. "You two decided Eric deserves everything and I deserve nothing. And now that you're facing the consequences, you're trying to guilt me into fixing it?" "Not happening." Mom's voice sharpened. "We thought you'd be mature about this." I raised an eyebrow. "Mature? You mean quietly accept that you betrayed me and keep paying your bills? Because that's what you wanted." Dad stepped closer, trying to tower over me like when I was a kid. "Ralph, we raised you, fed you, clothed you, gave you everything. The least you can do is help us now." I met his gaze. "I already did, for years, and you repaid me by cutting me out." Mom's lips trembled. "We thought you'd understand." I exhaled and shook my head. "Oh, I understand perfectly. I was never family to you, just a paycheck." Silence again. Thick, undeniable silence. I turned to Eric, who was still trying to blend into the background. "And you? What's your excuse? You've had years to get your life together, to contribute, but you didn't, because you knew they'd take care of you. And when they're gone, you expected me to step in, huh?" Eric snapped. "What do you want me to say, man?" I didn't ask for this. I nodded slowly. "Right. You didn't ask. You just benefited." His mouth opened, then closed. He had nothing. Mom tried one last guilt trip. "Ralph, we're family. Family takes care of each other." I stared at her for a long moment before replying. "Exactly. So why didn't you take care of me?" She froze. No words, no response. Nothing. I exhaled slowly, feeling lighter than I had in years. "We're done here." I turned and walked back inside, closing the door behind me. My phone buzzed before I even reached my couch. Dad. "Wow. After everything we've done for you, you're really going to abandon us?" I smirked and replied, "No, you abandoned me. I'm just finally accepting it." I sent it and blocked their numbers. But I didn't realize blocking them would only make things worse. Things spiraled quickly. Less than a day later, I started seeing posts on Facebook. My parents weren't tech-savvy, but they knew how to air their grievances online, especially when they felt justified. I thought it was just their usual drama, making family issues public. But as I scrolled through their profiles, I realized it wasn't just about me refusing to help financially anymore. Their posts were disguised as family love, but were thinly veiled attacks on me. Mom wrote about how she didn't raise her son to be so greedy and how real families support each other no matter what. A few of her friends commented, calling me a disappointment and out of touch with what matters. Then Dad joined in. So-called family shouldn't turn their back on you when you need them most. We gave everything to our kids, and this is how we're repaid? My son, who should be helping us in our later years, has chosen to abandon us. He tagged me, adding a passive-aggressive, hope you're happy at the end. The real blow came from Eric. I should have known he'd jump into the drama. His post was dripping with hypocrisy. I wish some people understood what family really means. I love my parents and am grateful for them. Some people think family is just about money. They don't get that it's about love and sacrifice. I'd do anything for my parents, but some people are too self-absorbed to see that. That was it. That was my breaking point. I sat there, staring at the screen, dumbfounded. How had it come to this? They'd turned the story upside down, painting me as the villain, the selfish son who refused to help his struggling parents, the son who didn't appreciate their love. How could they? I'd always been the one who worked hard, contributed, and never complained. They'd convinced themselves they were right and were now telling everyone I was the problem. I didn't want to react impulsively. I stepped back, gathered my thoughts, and waited a few hours. I wanted to be sure I wasn't just acting out of anger. But the more I thought about it, the more I knew I couldn't let them get away with it. If they were going to drag my name through the mud, I'd set the record straight. So I picked up my phone and started typing. I made a post on my own Facebook, which I kept for close friends and real family, and wrote a long update. I wasn't here to play their game or get dragged into petty arguments. I wanted to tell the truth. Here's what I wrote. I've been silent for a few days, but I can't stay quiet anymore. My family has been posting things about me online that are simply not true. They've painted me as the bad guy, the selfish one who refuses to help my parents in their time of need. I'm here to clear things up. I've always supported my family. Since I got my first job, I've been the one paying bills, buying groceries, and helping in every way. For years, I've watched my parents favor Eric, giving him everything, the house, the money, the attention, while I was expected to keep giving without ever being treated as equal. Some of you might read this and think that's just how family works. But here's the reality. Family is a two-way street. When I found out my parents left everything to Eric in their will, I realized how one-sided this relationship was. I funded their lifestyle for years. Bills, vacations, property taxes. And for what? To be treated as a backup plan? I'm done. I'm not just a bank account they can tap into whenever they want. I'm a person, and I deserve respect. I've earned the right to be valued, not just used when they need something. It's time for Eric to step up. He's 28, has never worked, and has never taken responsibility for anything. It's no shock my parents favor him, but he's had enough time to get his life together. To everyone following this drama and supporting my parents, please know there are two sides to every story. Yes, family matters, but so does mutual respect. I've given enough for a lifetime, and I'm not sorry for stepping back. This isn't me abandoning my family. It's me choosing myself. To my parents, I wish you well, but I'm done being your doormat. I hit post, and relief washed over me. For the first time, I was telling the world the truth about my family, how they'd used me for years, expecting me to save them without ever caring about my needs. I wasn't letting their narrative control me anymore. The responses came quickly. People I hadn't talked to in years reached out with support. Cousins, family friends, even distant relatives liked the post and messaged me privately, apologizing for what I'd been through. It felt freeing to finally speak my truth and not be manipulated or guilt-tripped. Then came the backlash. My parents and Eric lost it. Eric messaged me, "You're a traitor. You really had to air our business like this? You have no respect for family." Dad called, screaming into the phone. "You've ruined everything, Ralph. You'll regret this. You'll regret cutting us off, turning your back on your own family." But I didn't regret it. Not for a second. I blocked them all. I was done. For the first time in my life, I felt free. Free from the toxic hold they'd had on me for so long. As the days passed, a weight lifted off my shoulders. I was tired of being treated as less than, of always fixing everyone else's problems. Now I could live life on my terms. No, I don't feel bad about cutting them off. I deserved better. I still do. From now on, I'm choosing to surround myself with people who value me for who I am, not what I can give them. It's time for me to move forward, for good.